This is episode number 6 of the Expert Table Tennis podcast with me, your host, Ben Larcombe. And on today's show, I'm joined by Daniel Ives, the founder of TableTennisDaily. This is part 2 of our interview. Part 1 is back in episode 5, so I recommend you check that one out first if you haven't listened to it. Back in episode 5, we were talking about the kind of specialist table tennis schools and the provincial level of table tennis over in China. And then in this interview, we jumped straight into the national level of training. Dan was fortunate enough to head over to meet the Chinese national team, watch some of their training at the national centre. And he goes into some of the detail about kind of exactly what type of training they were doing, how the whole system is set up, how many players there are, what their kind of daily schedule looks like. So loads of good stuff in this podcast. And then we kind of wrap it up with some of Dan's conclusions and recommendations for how we could structure table tennis in England and in our own clubs to kind of replicate what they've got on in China. So really great episode. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. This is part 2 of the Daniel Ives interview about Table Tennis Daily's trip to China. At what age are they then able to move on from the provincial team to the national team?
Yeah, I think that's any age really. I think because when we went to the national team, the actual national team facility, it's a building that has 5 other sports, and it's incredible. There are 2 floors. So the top floor, the fifth floor is with the Chinese national team A squad. So there's around 22 players in the men, 22 players in the women. And then they have that on the top floor. So the Ma Longs, Fan Zhendongs, Xu Xing, Zheng Jike, Ding Ning, Lu Shiwen, those guys. The one downstairs is the national 2 team. So they're all the players like Ling Guyang, those young junior guys who are coming through. And that room is crazier than the top floor because the work rate's even harder. They train longer as well because they think they have to train more than the top guys to get into that top group.
Okay.
And yeah, so there's a lot of kids coming through that one from the provinces. And the 12-year-old we saw in the Beijing province team, the next day, he was in that B squad.
Oh, really?
He was in the B squad, yeah. We recognised him because we were like, isn't that the... And I was like, yeah, that's definitely him. And there was a couple of them, but we could. In fact, the B squad we couldn't get right. We could only get him from the corner, so we could only see from a little bit of afar. And yeah, they were doing matches that day. We went there. It was a competition team event. And what happens is as well in the national A squad, if a player is having a bad day or if they do something not good in the training, they go into the B squad for a week or so. So
really?
Yeah, so you've got that up and down, that thing. I was kind of comparing it to football, actually. Like football in Spain and wherever the top clubs, Barcelona and stuff like that. Ronaldinho was in an interview once and he said, the interviewer asked Ronaldinho, who's the best player in the world? And obviously they're expecting him to say Ronaldinho. And Ronaldinho said, no, it's a young guy in our reserve squad. And he was on about Messi. Messi was 16 at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a bit like that table tennis there. Those young ones in the reserve squad in the B team, the young 16-year-olds, they're at their level. It's just I guess it's just them pushing it and winning and getting into that national team. And imagine how hard they must be training to try and make that top squad. It's scary.
Because I guess even if you make that top squad, like there aren't 20 Chinese players on the ranking list, are
exactly.
there?
That's another little problem for them, I guess. I think for them, their biggest focus is the Chinese Super League and China events. It's massive for them, winning their national titles. Obviously, the World Championship stuff is huge in Olympics, but obviously only 2 people can go into Olympics, 5 can go to World Championships, and actually getting onto the national team, like even Yanan and Fang Bo. Recently, Fang Bo has obviously climbed right up there, getting to the final of the world, but the other one, Yanan, and there's a couple of other ones we haven't seen for a little while, struggle to get into that team, and
so they can still have a good life.
I think so.
Despite they seem to disappear, but they're still training and competing.
Yeah, and then playing the Chinese Super League. The Chinese Super League you can follow on TableTennisDaily.co.uk, and there's a lot of really cool posters on there from China, giving us all the information about it, and the money is actually pretty good for the top guys in Chinese Super League, which I was quite surprised about. They get, I think Marlong's on 300,000. It's just for a 4-month period as well, so it's not bad money. Those top ones are all around £300,000 or dollars, I think it is. But yeah, I mean, and even in Division 1, Division 2, and Division 3 in the Chinese Super League, the money is good. It's a yearly annual wage. So
Good enough to do
yeah,
it full time
it's
and
full
not have
time.
to.
Yeah, and yeah. So I think another big secret to their success, which we weren't allowed to film, which was such a shame. The strength and conditioning, the gym, we weren't allowed to have our cameras in there, but I could look through the window and watch a lot of it. And so Ma Lung and Shen Jika and that were in the gym, and had some weights in their arms, and they were like doing a lot of balancing stuff. And I think
Okay.
that's really important to their training now. Is the gym. They do an hour and a half every single day in between their two sessions, and I think what they're doing in the gym is really important for their injury prevention. Because I spoke to the gym instructor there who I spoke to him a little bit about what he does with the guys there, and he said yeah, our biggest focus is injury prevention and building
Sure.
strength, and I think it's really important because avoiding injury at that level is so important. I mean, if we look at Timo Boll and Michael Mays, the top European guys, so many of them are going for injuries, right? I
Yeah.
think it's Timo Boll. He's done well getting away with his back injury, because I know what it's like with a back injury, and I don't know which one he's actually got, but I know Shanjika's got a back injury at the moment as well, and I think a lot of top sports athletes in all sports are realising how important it is to not get injured and to manage it. So yeah, so a lot of work they were doing in the gym. We kind of recalled, but I saw what was going on, and it was a lot of back stretching, like the cat stretching stuff, and it was a lot of like small mini weights. So they were like leaning side to side with small mini weights, one-legged stuff, jumping, squats. A lot of like stuff you could probably do in your house actually.
Okay.
I obviously did use equipment as well, but we never saw much of that. But I saw the badminton team using the equipment, and yeah, it was very strong stuff. It was surprising.
Oh, why didn't they want you to film that?
I'm not sure. I don't think they. I don't. As I said, I think that's not a secret, but I think that's one thing they like keeping. I think it's because they don't want people to. Well, maybe I'm not sure, Ben. It's a good question. I think it's part of their training, and they don't like even in recording in the national centre when they're training on the table. They don't like it. They don't mind us doing it, but we can only do a certain amount. So
Yeah.
were only given, I think, 45 minutes to an hour when we were in there last time. Yeah, but the gym we weren't allowed to record, which was a shame.
So I've heard rumours before, and it's probably complete nonsense, but
Yeah,
I've heard people say that when the Chinese when the Chinese national team let people film,
yeah,
they deliberately do these kind of like European standard boring regular drills,
yeah.
and then when the cameras leave, they go back to doing whatever kind of like super Chinese training they normally do.
Yeah, that would
What do you,
surprise me actually, because it is that simple. That's why when you go out there, you're like, what? It's such simple stuff. But no, it's the quality again. I think it's just because of the quality they're hitting against. I think, Ben, if you was to go and knock with Xu Xing, right, for a week, and he blocked for you for a week, your level would improve so quickly, because he'd be top spinning against your backhand, you'd be holding that block. Can you imagine how much you'd improve? And
yeah.
they're all doing that. So the young kids coming through get a chance to play in the A squad, and then get to practice against Fang Bo, Chenki, all these guys. The level will just keep improving. It doesn't matter even what exercise they're probably doing. A lot of right. So this is how the exercises work actually. So in the morning they do a lot of like irregular and regular stuff, and a lot of footwork in the morning. So it'd be like 3-point forehand, then some irregular to the backhand, bit of serve and spin. So that sort of stuff. Very simple, but obviously at an unbelievable high quality level. Like Fan Dong was doing an exercise where he was going forehand, wide, forehand, middle, forehand from the backhand, and then wide forehand, and then carrying it on. So it was a big jump from
Okay.
backhand to forehand. Huge footwork. It was amazing. Every now and then you get out of position, then you'll throw a big backhand bomb in. But then in the afternoon, they would do multiple and serve practice. I uploaded a video recently of Marlon during that session doing a reverse serve. I don't know if you've seen it, but it was awesome. And the focus they have on their serve practice, the coaches come around and they point their finger on the table, and then they've got to try and hit the ball to the finger. Now the level was very high, and I mean, Xu Xing was doing serves, and I thought they looked amazing, right? The coach comes flying along and gives Xu Xing an earful. What's going on here? Like, I don't know what he's saying, but I would love to know what the hell he was saying. But it was
Yeah.
it was interesting, because then Xu Xing would like refocus and then carry on doing more serves, and it looked even better that time, and that even at that level, Xu Xing's level, recently won number one, the coach can still give him feedback on his serve, and you're like, what? And is there a coach going up to Timo Boll, or, these top ones, and doing that at that level? I don't know. Like, it was so intense, Xu Xing serve practicing, and the intensity of that serve practice was just crazy.
It does seem like the Chinese players in general, and this might just be a big generalization, but they're kind of they're more humble. They're more likely to just accept being told off. Whereas maybe like, a top European player feels like they're more kind of, they're above all of that.
Possibly,
now.
No, I think you're right there. Had a friend from Korea, and he said that the Asian culture is very much like that, where if someone's older than you have to show them, respect. And he said, like, for example, say you go into a car, the older person will sit in the front. Silly things like that, but he said you'll always like bow down to an older person if you're in a room with them or anything like that. And so I think you're right that their culture is a lot more, especially when they're the coach in the hall, they respect them. And I think giving them that respect helps the coach be able to even coach better. You know what I mean? When players don't give coaches respect, I think it's quite hard for the coach.
Yeah, it's not a good dynamic.
No, it's not at all. Yeah, it's.
I mean, so one other thing that you said was that every player in the national centre had their own personal coach.
Yeah.
Like, are there like 20 odd coaches in the hall?
Yeah, so one coach is assigned there's actually a picture I see recently, it was brilliant, and it showed which coach works with which player. So, the Penhold coach, who, I can't think of his name, but he worked with Wang Hao. So he works with Fan Zhendong and a few others. Ma Long's current coach, he works with Fang Bo, I think, as well, and some others. Do you know what I mean? So there's one coach per 4 players. But so in the hall, the coach that works with Ma Long will be standing around Ma Long's table and some others when they're in the serve practice. And that coach will go over to Ma Long, give some feedback. Fan Zhendong's coach will be hanging around with Fan Zhendong doing the serve practice. And then it's those coaches who feed the multiple for that player as well. So when you see Ma Long doing multiple, it'll always be with that one coach.
Okay.
When Fan Zhendong will get fed by the multiple of his coach, and so on. And Xu Xing and STIGA. STIGA has that fierce coach. He's awesome. And so that's how it works pretty much. There's 7 coaches, I believe, in that national A squad who work with that 22-man. Is it 22-person team? Yeah. And it's phenomenal.
It sounds pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I think I always think about it, and I think there's no secret to it, right? I think with the whole how good they are, it's not like a God-given thing, is it? It's just simply the work ethic and the whole structure, simply, and how many people are playing, how they get the kids playing, and and the history of the sport as well.
So one thing they don't do is just pick kids at random, do they? And say if we pick 10,000 kids at random from China, some of them will be. They are selecting young kids that seem to have some degree of talent, or whatever that is.
Good question. Yeah. I've seen in some things before where they select the taller ones to go into basketball and stuff like that. Is that what you mean? So in the PE, they'll be like, okay, this one will be very suited to badminton, or
they're looking for something, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so. I saw an interview with Shenjika's coach, and they asked him, "What do you look for in a young kid?" And he was talking about like a passion for a game, a good eye-hand coordination, and a few other things like that. So I think they do look for a couple. I think they might do, yeah.
I guess overall, what you're saying is that they view the structure and the system as more important than the individual.
Yeah, I think so, because there's such a variation in degree as to how someone plays, the style, and I think that score. It'd be nice to have if I asked the coach actually how do they select the players. But it would be worth giving an email out to them, wouldn't it, and just seeing what they say, because that's a good question, very good question. Is how do they actually what makes them go, okay, this 4-year-old will be a good tennis player. What are they saying to do that? But that coach, he did say in that interview, he's looking for eye-hand coordination and a love for the game. The that work rate and that passion to enjoy hitting a ball over the table. Yeah. Some kids, I see it in the school working. Some kids just are fanatical and they love just keep hitting a ball over and trying to improve straight away with no practice. They just want to do that. I think I wanted to do that when I was young, straight away. But then again, that's because my dad played and I probably watched him, so that encouraged that. You know what I mean? So I do think a lot of that those the young ones in the Beijing school, I think a lot of it's from parents as well, because they did say that the parents around China try and bring their kids to the Beijing school.
Yeah.
So maybe their dads played, their mums, so it encouraged that. That was another thing actually. There's a lot of mums in the school feeding multi-ball and stuff and helping
Oh,
out.
really?
Yeah, there was a lot of that going on, which was cool to see. And I've seen that on videos before, where they start out the kids who are really young and just multi-ball and stuff like that. But
I guess that makes it a bit less intimidating for them
yeah,
if they're.
I guess so. Yeah, I work in a school at the moment, and I managed to. Good thing I've got going on is I can work with 4 kids 1 hour slots. So I've got 4 of them, so I can give a good individual feedback and get them to improve, right? And sometimes they'll go away and they've all learnt the forehand topspin quite well, and they've all managed to strike the ball with spin and brush it, which is great. It gets to the next week, and I've almost got to redo that whole process. They get it back quicker, but it takes a little. You know what I mean? I've got to keep doing that. Whereas
Yeah.
in China, they're doing 2 of those type of sessions every day. So you can imagine it if those kids in my school did that 2 hours every single day in China with that same sort of structure and progression they can look towards. They're gonna, straight away they're gonna keep learning and they'll progress quicker. So one kid within a week in China is probably getting the same level of a quantity and quality as what these kids are getting in my school in a year, and they're getting that in a week. And then you know what I mean?
Yeah, like does seeing what's going on in China, because I feel like it could lead you one of 2 ways. Either you could feel like, right now you kind of understand what they're doing and you're going to be able to apply that to your coaching,
Yeah,
or you kind of see what they're doing and think, dear me, like we have not
yeah,
got
good
we've not got
chance.
a hope to like.
Yeah,
How do you view that? Because there's no way you're going to be able to get kids at your school,
exactly.
like in a primary school, doing 4 hours of table tennis a day. It's just not
Exactly.
going to happen.
Yeah. Well, one thing me and Lloyd Gregory, when we was at uni, always talk about with coaching, which I think is really important to take, is to do it to create the person, not try and create a player as such. So, you I'd rather someone develop great discipline skills and great overall well-being as a person than you know what I mean. So just by doing sport and being active is great nowadays, I think, because it's quite sad when I'm in schools these days, and a lot of kids are playing computer games and PlayStations, and they're in the table tennis session talking about FIFA when they go home, and they're all going to go in the FIFA tournament, organise it online, and it's quite worrying. Whereas in China, I doubt none of the kids have that opportunities, and they just play their table tennis and sport. So
Yeah.
for me, when I'm doing the coaching now, I'm motivated even more because I just want to get people playing the sport and actually loving it and being active long term. You know what I mean? And enjoying it and playing at a good level and trying to improve them as much as I can. But at the same time, you want to keep them in the sport and not let them drop out at the age of 16, which is so common. I think we're both of us. We're probably quite fortunate with this. We're still playing. We've had different ventures to keep loving the game, haven't we? So, and it's really important to do that. And I think one thing that will just improve England as a whole is just the whole club structure. So, in other countries, there's a lot more club battles going on. Dusseldorf versus Oxenhausen. If you had that in the UK, that'd be really really cool. So once a month, Bristol takes on Manchester, or Bristol takes on London, or Reading takes on Plymouth. You know what I mean? Like they do with basketball, like they do with. Our basketball's doing really well in this country at the moment, and they've got a very good basketball team in Bristol Flyers, and I've seen it with the progression with the kids at the academy. They're around 16, and all they want to do is get in that Bristol Flyers team.
Okay.
Right? Whereas the Bristol Academy table tennis ones, what are they aiming for? Okay, British League team, yeah, but every week these Bristol Flyers academy kids are going to the matches every week, supporting the team. Watching the 21-year-olds playing amazing sport, being on the TV as well, cameras around, 500 spectators watching. And that's what happens in China. So that's what's causing that motivation and that level of practice.
So we got to start building that kind of structure if you want
I
to.
think the structure's got to change. Doesn't matter what feedback we give to someone or even coaching. As I said, in China, the coaching, I don't think there'd be not much difference in. Okay, there would be different in coaching what they're saying, but it's the structure that's making that person improve. You know what I mean? I think anyway.
Yeah.
I think because you can only say so much, and all I know is that 6-year-old is probably right now practicing as we speak, and just busting a gut, you know. And I don't know any other
I think
6-year-old doing that in England.
I think you do see this in like a microstructure in the UK
Yeah,
where you might have a club that's got a really good structure, has been established for ages, is really well set up.
yeah,
There doesn't seem to be any particularly good coach there even,
yeah, yeah.
but they just continually turn out these decent players.
Exactly.
Whereas
Yeah,
you can't just take a really good coach, put them into
yeah.
some school and expect them to
Exactly.
develop players just because they're a good coach.
Exactly. It's very. I agree with that. I've said that before. I say to myself, if we put Richard Prowse now into this training hall, what would much change? You know, the German national team, well,
Yeah.
the World National Academy coach, yeah, and you know, look at the World National Academy. The structure they're employing there is crazy. It's amazing, and they're probably copying a lot of the China practices and stuff. But I think you're right there because Liam Pitchford, I interviewed him once about his training. You know, and he had him, Danny Lowe, and Liam, Danny Lowe, and who's Sean
Sean.
Cullen. So the three of them in the same school, and I think it was a PE teacher or a coach who used to train them. But because that competitiveness there was every single day, imagine Liam, Sean, and Danny always having matches and building that mental capacity and that hard work because they all want to be better than each other. Then going to tournaments with each other and traveling around the country. That's really, really good. And I think that's a 1 in 1,000, I guess. And that's what Liam is. Obviously, Liam moved to Germany when he was 16, 17. But yeah, I think for it to improve as a whole, the club somehow has got to change. There is some things they're doing, like they've got the development centres coming in now. So maybe in 5 years down the line, if these talent development centres become flourishing with kids coming through, then that could really improve things.
Yeah.
So then you'd have Bristol taking on the Plymouth version, or one up north, or London, and so yeah, it's just I don't know if that's what their long term aim is, but I think definitely you've got to have things for kids to keep chasing for. For example, in the school I'm at the moment, you know, the kids are getting a bit unmotivated, so I've now put them in a match against a local school, and now they're all buzzing and training again because they're like, oh, we're taking on this local school, and you know what I mean? And you need that with all levels, and I think that's probably going on all the time in China. Very competitive.
Yeah. There needs to be a reason to put in all that hard work.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, totally. That's true. Yeah, definitely.
Well done. That's been
Awesome.
That's been fascinating.
Yeah. Thanks, Ben. I really appreciate actually you getting in touch with me and wanting to do this because it's good for me, and I'm glad that people can listen to it as well, and it'll be really, really cool because it reminds me of everything that went on as well. You know what I mean? Talking to you about it is really cool.
Yeah, I'm sure whether people are players or coaches or parents, they'll definitely get a lot from that interview and kind of understanding how it works over there in China. And I really hope at some stage I can get myself over there and kind of check it out firsthand.
I agree, because I think you definitely need to do that because it is for anyone, just do it because it's mind blowing, it's crazy, and also China's such an amazing place. And anyway, it's really cool, and table tennis is it's like football out there, so it's just everywhere. Walking down the high street, you see outdoor table tennis tables. You see 4 or 5 of them. You know, not just the average one. It's like 5 outdoor tables. It's crazy. Yeah. It's really cool.
Cool.
Thanks,
well,
man.
thank you very much, Dan.
Yeah, take care.
What's your website for everyone?
www.tabletennisdaily.co.uk.
If they're into table tennis, they should definitely go and check that out.
Thanks. Awesome.
Cheers,
Thanks, Ben. Take care.
All right, see you later.
Bye.
Bye. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to Dan for that interview. Really fascinating to get a glimpse into the world of Chinese table tennis from someone that's been there and experienced it. Now, one thing that really stood out to me from that 2-part series was just the importance of the structure when it comes to creating players. Now, obviously, the players have some degree of talent and there are plenty of kind of talented and experienced coaches involved along the way. But without that structure, that kind of pyramid structure that they have in place, they really wouldn't be seeing kind of any sort of the level of success that they are seeing. And I guess it would be foolish for us not to try and incorporate that structure into our own clubs, into our own leagues, into our own kind of country setups. So that's something that it would be great if moving forwards, kind of England and other similar countries in our in our situation could find a way to try and incorporate that. And obviously it's going to be difficult because we haven't got the same resources, we haven't got as many people. But if we can try and create that kind of pyramid structure that leads to the kind of competitive environment and then kind of tweak it slightly to fit into our culture, then I think that's certainly the way forward. And it really harks back to something that Dan O'Connor was saying in episode 2 about it's not always about the quality of the practice and the quality of the coaching, what drills you're doing. A lot of the time it's just if you're in that right environment, players will be produced, and it's about finding a way to create these environments that will produce players for us. So thank you very much for listening. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes. Do leave a review if you have enjoyed the show. And if you'd like to email me, you can always do that. You can just send me an email to ben@experttabletennis.com if you've got any feedback about the show, or you'd like to recommend a guest, or if you've just got a question about table tennis you'd like me to answer. That is open to you, and I'll make sure to get back with an email as soon as I can. So ben@experttabletennis.com is my email address. Feel free to email me if you have any questions, and otherwise I will see you in the next episode, which will be out in a week's time. Thanks for listening.